Come on in, sit back and relax. You're listening to episode 207 of the WealthTech Today podcast. I'm your host, Craig Iskowitz, founder of Ezra Group Consulting, and this podcast features interviews, news, and analysis on the trends and best practices all around wealth management technology. My guest for this episode, I'm excited to announce, is Michael Lecours, co-founder of fpPath. Now, Michael is also a financial advisor and a planner at Wealth Strategies team. He began his career in advertising, where he worked to develop marketing strategies for insurance companies, banks, and credit unions. Now he leverages his background to distill complex financial planning concepts into straightforward strategies, applying behavioral finance concepts to the planning process and injecting a disciplined approach to all facets of the client experience. Now, you're going to really love this interview with Michael. I know I really had a good time talking to him, but before we get started, I have a message for all executives at wealth management firms. Your tech debt is holding back your business growth. Your old software platform is rusted and falling apart, and it needs an overhaul. Your disparate systems don't communicate well with each other, and it's driving your ops team and your advisors crazy with manual processes and errors. So if you're in charge of tech or ops for a broker-dealer, RIA, family office, or TAMP, you should run, not walk to our website, ezragroup.com, and fill out the Contact Us form on the homepage. Our experienced team can evaluate your current tech ecosystem, deliver targeted recommendations, optimize your existing systems and operations, or run an RFP and help you implement new software to take your firm to the next level. You can take advantage of our free consultation by going to ezragroup.com. All right, a couple quick housekeeping tasks. Please subscribe to this program wherever you listen to podcasts so you don't miss an episode. Check out one of our sponsors, the Invest in Others Charitable Foundation at investinothers.org. And that's it. Let's kick this thing off. Next up, I have the pleasure of introducing our next guest, Michael Lecours, co-founder of fpPath. Michael, how you doing, man?
Hi, Craig. Thanks for having me on. Doing great.
I'm so happy to have you here. I've been a follower of your company for many years. We never really had a chance to speak, so I'm glad you're here. Where are you calling in from?
I'm from the Hartford, Connecticut area.
Mm-hmm.
So up in New England.
Beautiful Hartford. I just was on the train right through your state over the weekend. I was coming back from Boston.
Yeah.
And I waved, but you didn't see me.
No, did not. I missed that.
That's all right. So Michael, give us a 30-second elevator pitch for
Sure.
fpPath.
Yeah. So I am the co-founder and also financial advisor of in this business. And what we do here at fpPath is we help advisors have more diligent conversations with their clients about financial planning topics. Essentially, we're helping them look and be smarter in front of their clients. And we do that with creating two different kinds of tools. It's checklists and flowcharts. So the checklists help advisors uncover planning opportunities for their clients, and the flowcharts help advisors tease out the decision aspects, the decision points that have to happen with some of our big choices that we're making on or helping our clients make.
One of the reasons why I was interested in this is that as a consultant, and we work with a lot of RIAs and broker-dealers and other wealth management firms, is they don't have these workflows and flowcharts, but they do the work. They're still doing these processes.
Mm-hmm.
They just don't write it down, how they do it. It sort of evolves over time. It's in people's heads. And firms that have been up for 10 or 20 years or more have these very complicated processes that usually layered with multiple different parallel tracks. There's always spreadsheets involved, even though there's different software that they're talking to, lots of manual processes. So I love anything that can help streamline the workflows of a wealth management firm.
Yeah. You're right. And that was kind of the pain point that I saw being an advisor, was that I struggled to keep certain rules straight. And so every couple of weeks or months, questions would come in and I couldn't answer them. Or if I did answer them, I might get them wrong, or I just didn't have the confidence. So to your point, I was just sketching something out to help myself. And it was a flow chart, just can an advisor or can a client make a contribution to their IRA, a deductible IRA contribution? And I thought it was just me because I was new. But I was working closely with my father, who's also a financial advisor, and he was running into the same kind of issue as well. And he's been a financial advisor for like 20, 30 years. So there is this aspect, you're right, of just trying to provide advice for yourself, but we were also seeing it was a consistency aspect. We wanted clients, when they called up, whether they're talking to my father, who was like the senior planner, or me being a junior advisor at the time, to receive consistent guidance on the planning issues. And so these flow charts and eventually checklists help to create that framework for us.
I can see how that would do that. And consistency is important. Even a firm, as you mentioned, with just 2 advisors, you should be giving the same advice to people who have the same problems.
Right.
Or the same question. How do I do a 529, or how do I do a rollover, or I've got a small business, what do I do? You should be giving consistent advice. And especially with firms that have hundreds of advisors, if they're all giving a wide variety of advice, and that's not a good look.
Exactly. Yeah. And so that plays into a part where some firms try to develop some of those workflows on their own. What we've seen so far is that a lot of those workflows are operations based. So client calls up and says, my spouse passed away. We've gotten as an industry pretty good in saying, okay, well, what do we do with those accounts? Like, okay, we've got to open up new accounts. We have to get the death certificate in here, and with the ultimate goal of just getting the accounts retitled. But you move over to what the financial planner has to do in that stage. And that's where it goes to your point, it's all up in the advisor's head. Are we covering like all these conversations about cash flow changes, what's happening with different types of life insurance, what kinds of options are we taking with annuities? And that's the opportunity, because it's always changing. And we can't keep it all straight, because once we do, the rules change. You go back 5 years ago, and the conversations about what to do with an inherited IRA are a million times different than what they are now, because Secure Act has come along, and then Secure Act 2.0, and we've got more changes coming. And so it was so complicated that even for the small subset of advisors that we talked to, where they had their own planning workflows for the advisor, they're going, it takes too much time to maintain this, let alone create new ones. And so that's where we started to supplement or augment a lot of the work that those folks were doing. And then it opened up a whole new opportunity for folks that didn't have the time or inclination to be process driven and create processes. Like, there's a turnkey option now for them.
And just like every advisor doesn't have the same personality, some advisors are introverts, some are extroverts, some are great at building, some aren't so great. There are some advisors who are great at building processes and others who aren't. So I think that your product seems to level the playing field in that respect.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
But now, who are your users? Is it usually brand new advisors who don't know what they're doing and need the checklist to kind of figure things out?
So that was our original hypothesis, was that new advisor comes on, they don't really have all the rules figured out. And so these guides could help them. Turns out we were completely wrong on that assumption. When we started to actually poll our advisors and survey them, we found out that like the average advisor tenure was like 5 to 10 years. And what we found when talking with them was that they'd been around the block. They knew the rules. They knew them so well that they were actually having trouble keeping them all straight, because now there's just so much out there. And then like Secure Act comes along, and now it changes the thinking. And they go, those rules change for the deductible IRA contributions? Like, I kind of think so. Where's that going into effect? I can't remember. And that becomes the pain point. It's that there's just so much out there that we as advisors are tasked with understanding that we just can't possibly keep it all straight. And that only comes with time.
So you'd say the majority of the benefit of your workflows, flowcharts, and checklists is not necessarily saving time, but giving advisors a consistent process for be able to follow these workflows, so that they may not know all the details behind the underlying regulations.
Right. Yeah. That was the other thing that we thought about. We thought early on, we're going, this saves time. Like, client calls up, they're going through a life event. They just lost their job. Well, instead of the advisor having to like frantically search on Google to try to find guidance and then having to do all this extra research, it's going to save a lot of time if they just have a 1-page or a 2-page document that has all of these great planning questions and some nuggets of information to help the advisor guide the client. In reality, it doesn't do that. They're finding more planning issues by having a systematized checklist to go through. So there's no time savings. It's a productivity tool. You're doing a lot more in the same amount of time for the clients.
Yeah, so it is saving time, but they're not using it to do other things. They're using it to be more productive with that particular client.
Yes, I guess, yeah. They're more productive. They spend the same amount of time, but they're doing a lot more. So is it an efficiency thing? But it's like, the interesting point is that we don't try to sell this as a time saver.
Mm-hmm.
This is really about helping the advisor have a better conversation, uncover more things to help their client.
Sounds a lot like advice engagement.
Yeah, it is. So talk about the kits that, well, actually you have a big hand in this as well, the fintech
Correct.
map. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, Michael and I do that. So that's why you guys are in the advice engagement category.
Yeah, it's like we showed up one day, and I still remember like when that article came out, and all of a sudden we got moved over, and one actually makes a lot of sense. We never really knew where we fit.
Yeah,
Michael
like and I don't do this
around.
randomly. We're not flipping a coin to see where the vendors go. We have some thought behind it, right?
But I think that I thought was such an important decision on your part to take that time to think about this growing suite of tools out there, and what is that need, and where does that fit within the overall planning process. And so there's several other folks in that space, and we've been trying to define like who are we as a space. And it's a great group with FP Alpha and Bento and Asset Map and BusyWealth, because there's so much around this advice engagement aspect and what this means, because 5, 6, 10 years ago, it was not the same kind of thing it is now in terms of what the needs are among advisors. And so we're solving this thing. For us, for FP Pathfinder, we were seeing this need or this desire for advisors to provide more value to their clients. And what does that actually look like? Like, the financial plan is developed. Everything is fine. The investments are fine. How do we justify our fee? I've got my client coming in 1 week, and I want to talk with them about something other than the account performance. And I can't talk about the financial plan because it's all on track. They're retired. What do I do? How do I justify my fee? That's advice engagement.
Which is valuable. It was more and more clients are looking back at their fees and saying, "What am I doing here? Why don't I just move to a robo?"
Right. Yes. Yeah. And so like, that's something that, I mean, that theme is growing more and more now. It's like 5 years ago, it's like you could talk about it and hear folks talking about other advisors on Twitter. But now it's like there are lots of clients really getting very focused about, okay, what am I getting for this? How does this make sense for me? How often are you looking at the investments? What's going on in my financial plan? How are you helping me here?
Yeah, what work are you actually doing?
Right. And so that gets to this whole other aspect about shadow work that we as advisors do. There's all this stuff that we do as advisors that we don't get credit for. And so one thing that we, like a pilot project that we launched last year, was around RMDs.
Mhm.
All advisors, we're all checking that, right?
Mhm.
Did you satisfy your RMD?
Mhm.
Yes? Okay, we're moving on. No? Okay, we're calling you up. We got a fire drill to go through.
Mhm.
But what if you built upon that and you made that part of the process of working with your clients? So we've got a checklist of like 15 planning issues to consider all around RMDs. And then we've got a deliverable report where the advisor can type in all the key elements of like what goes into the RMD, like how much have you taken out? Where does it go? What's your tax withholding? And so now the advisor can do this in bulk and send it off to their client saying, let's review your RMD. Here's where you stand. And here are like 12 different planning questions, because maybe you don't need the money to go into your bank account. Maybe you're charitably inclined and it's never really come up in the same way. And we actually should be doing qualified charitable distributions. Or maybe like the markets are up or down right now and we want to take the RMD in the middle of the year as opposed to waiting to the end of the year, or vice versa. And so it's actually trying to pull some of that shadow work out that we do behind the scenes and make it more public facing.
Okay, I have a quick question for you. So, talking about checklists and workflows and all the work that you're doing and how your advisors are using them, it's a productivity tool, it builds better conversations. I have a question, like a rhetorical question, but I'm sure there's an answer to it. But does this help scale advice? And can you scale advice? Is that something that can be done? And how does your product help do that?
Yeah. All right. So if you had asked me that question 8 years ago, I would say no. And that was kind of the consensus that I was hearing as I was at conferences and I was talking or following folks on Twitter. Then the pandemic happens and everything gets turned upside down. Now we're exiting the pandemic, and I think that there's a different world. And so now I'm more of a believer that you can scale advice. And I think that you can scale advice because, first of all, clients are more open to technology than they were pre-pandemic. And they're more open to doing things in a different way. And then on top of that, during the pandemic, a bunch of fintech companies got together or not got together, they just created a software tool set that could allow for some elements of scalability. And even for ones that didn't create like a dedicated product, there were other firms that were creating aspects to it. So like Nitrogen has something about, I think it's called like the client meeting aspect, where they're sending out on behalf of the advisor an email to prompt them to answer a couple of questions. And depending on the answers to those questions, the advisor can then go follow up with the client and say, hey, you're nervous about the markets, but you're okay about your long-term financial plan. Let's talk.
That's called check-ins.
Check-ins, okay. All right, so that's one. You also have elements that is also, it's kind of sitting in the same quadrant on the tech map, where it's all sales and enablement, where they've got software and parameters out there that can help to kind of look at where folks stand in the financial plan process and maybe raise the flags. And Asset Map has another tool like that. We've kind of approached it like the mission, like if that's the top of the mountain, we're on like the other side of the mountain, coming up the different route, and we're really looking at how do you scale those conversations. And so as our own product has evolved over time, where we're at right now is that advisors are saying, we don't want to just sit down with our client and go through a checklist together during the meeting. And we don't want to be thinking through what should we talk about in a client meeting. We want to send this checklist to the client before we meet. They answer the buttons, they check the boxes, they answer the questions. And when they're done, We want this information to go into the CRM. So we can go in there very quickly and see what the planning issues are. So we don't walk into a meeting completely blindsided. And then we can actually be prepared for this meeting, uncover the planning issues. So the meeting is spent not trying to figure out what the issues actually are, but solving them. And so you're making that meeting really productive, and then you minimize all of the follow-up that has to happen afterwards. And that's creating like a scalable meeting aspect.
I'm glad you brought that up. So your product is more than just checklists. These are not paper checklists. It's not a PDF file. This is an interactive software product. As you mentioned, can be sent out to the clients before a meeting. They can fill it out. That data then goes into the CRM automatically. When they click submit, that the advisor can then review and use to then build the agenda for their client meeting.
That's exactly right. Now, we didn't get started that way. We got started of thinking we were a due diligence company. And so all of our checklists and flowcharts were just PDFs. And then advisors said, no, we want to send this to our clients. Like, get rid of your FP Pathfinder logo. Like, we want our logo there, and we want our color palette. And so that was like the first big iteration that we made. And then folks said, get into the 21st century. Like, stop with the PDF stuff. Like, we want an interactive checklist. We want to either complete this on our own, or we want the client to complete this. And we want documentation in the CRM. So 6 months from now, we know what we have to be working on still.
Exactly. I mean, that's really the name of the game is keep everything on track and track everything. If you're not tracking everything, you don't really know where you are or where you stand.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
And there's also a number of other different tools. So you've got, of course, workflows and checklists, but you also have service guides, email templates, and other tools. What's the most popular ones that you see advisors using the most?
Okay, really interesting. So when we talk about technology, there's a certain aspect of advisors or any user or person, there's like a subset where they intuitively get it. They see checklist, flowchart, they're like, got it. I know exactly how to plug this into my business. We're getting to the point now where those folks, they already are working with us. It's now people that say, I like the idea of checklists and flowcharts, but I don't know what I do with this after I sign up. And so when you look at those email templates or the service guides, those are more educational tools that we offer. And we offer all of that as just a freebie so that advisors can look at this and say, okay, now I get it. Here's how I can introduce this checklist to my clients. So we have guides up there where you can use it to kick off planning conversations for the start of the year. Or let's say we want to have conversations with clients about how to save more and what buckets should we be looking at for that. Advisors were coming back saying, okay, I want to use this. I just don't know, how do I talk about it? So we wrote up letters and just said, here, Mr. Client, it's really important that we keep focusing on saving more, or these are the issues to look at the start of the year. It's really important, Here's a checklist to get you started. Please go through it. And after you've gone through it, schedule a time to talk with us so we can go through this in more detail. All right. And so there's this awesome case study where there was an advisor that used some of our guides in conjunction with Holistiplan. And so the advisor sent out an email that said, right now we are going to be focusing in on doing Roth conversions. Here are the benefits of Roth conversions, But you might not totally qualify. Please check out this flowchart to see if you do. And so they can pull up our flowchart and you can go through the rules. And then the letter ends by saying, if you get to the green box, please schedule a time for us to talk. And he sends it out to all of his clients. Client schedules it. They upload their tax return. When he actually gets on the call, he's already uploaded the tax return into Holistiplan. He knows what the Roth conversion amounts could be. so he can have that conversation with the client right then and there. And so he's able to do this for all of his clients in a 1 month period of time.
Hmm.
Now, we took that with Holistiplan because that was such a great case study, and we've actually built a really big partnership together.
Hmm.
So within Holistiplan, when you upload a tax return, it generates all of these planning observations within Holistiplan. And based on those planning observations, it will also then link to the fpPath Finder guides for additional information.
How does it know which guides to link to?
That's where we come in. So we actually, it's nothing technical. Like, we just are looking at those planning observations, and then we're saying, hey, these 3 guides make a lot of sense for a Roth conversion. You're doing okay. We got something to deal with IRMA surcharges. Like, that's getting flagged as an issue or as an observation. Let's link a couple of guides there. It's us like putting on like financial planning hats and just looking at the 2 tools about how they can overlap and then work together.
We love integrations, Michael. So anything that's connecting different applications together and making things easier for advisors, we're all for. Are there other integrations you want to highlight?
All right. So the integrations with CRMs, it's Redtail and Wealthbox and Salesforce are the big ones. We also have a couple of the Salesforce like add-ons.
Mm-hmm.
With Redtail and Wealthbox, there's something else where with those you can be in the CRM, and from the CRM, specifically the contact record, you can launch the checklists directly there. So you go back to my other example earlier, client calls up, spouse passed away, what do I do? The general rule of thumb is that the advisor should be in the CRM first. Like, that's the first screen they should be pulling up, because it's got the notes, the contact information, you have everything right there at your fingertips. So how cool would it be where all of a sudden you're learning more about what's going on, and within 2 or 3 clicks, you're able to launch the right checklist to help that client. And then when you're done answering the questions, you hit one button and all of that information flows back into the CRM. So that's on like the pure integration side. What I talked about with Holistiplan, it's not technically an integration. It's just a deep partnership. Like, there's no single sign-on. There's actually like no real coding that happens to connect the tools together. But there's Holistiplan, and then we have Asset Map as well, where as you fill out the investment instruments or the financial instruments, if you're entering in values and it's getting picked up as a true investment tool, or like I don't know what they're calling it. It's a block. It just shows up on their map. It's also teeing up appropriate guides relevant to whatever that financial instrument is. So if your client says, "Oh, I've got Social Security, let's add that as a box to the map," they can type that in, and then it will also say, "Now go take a look at the Social Security checklist," or if it's a dormant 401k, we'll look at this dormant 401k flowchart. And then we're doing a little bit more with Snappy Kraken along those lines, where it's a marketing company. They've got some really cool content, but once you get that lead in, how do you turn around and then have like the deep planning conversations to kind of fulfill the value that you are putting yourself out there for? So we're building more and more of those together as well.
We love it. More is better. More integrations, more connectivity, more seamless workflows and flowcharts and processes for advisors is always a good thing. Michael, we've run out of time. Can you give everyone at home listening information as to where they can find out more information?
Yes, they can go to fpPathfinder.com. And we've got a lot of samples up there. So a lot of the guides that I was just talking about, folks can just go on there and take a look at them, browse around, and see what we have.
We like free trials and free samples. Those are great.
Yeah.
Michael, thanks so much for being here.
Great. Thank you so much, Craig.
Hey, it's Craig again. And here are my top 3 takeaways from this episode. Number one, it's not only new advisors who benefit from the checklist, templates, and workflows of fpPath Finder, but experienced advisors as well. They use the resources to help them stay up to date with changing regulations. Number two, Michael spoke about a trend he's seeing with clients questioning the value they receive from financial advisors. And he stressed that this can be counteracted through increased transparency, as of course is provided by fpPath Finder. All right, number three, they recently launched an integration with Holistiplan with the tax recommendation links to Pathfinder and their guides. So we love integrations. We love hearing about ways that applications are working with each other to make life easier for advisors. All right, that's a wrap on this episode. Please go to our website, EzraGroup.com, scroll to the bottom of the homepage, and sign up for our newsletter. Once a month, you'll receive an email chock full of wealth management goodness, news, updates, information. You won't be disappointed. Thanks for listening, and talk to you all again next time.